All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. All right, everybody. Just settle in for a second, and then we'll get started here in just a moment. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Just brewed myself a second cup of coffee, so we're gonna Bing chill today. All right, before I get started, gonna go ahead and say that one, I got the puppy sleeping next to me. Maybe he wakes up and makes some noise. Who knows? Always a roll of the dice with him. But then it's allergy season where I'm at, and I was cleaning my office this morning, knocked up a ton of dust, so I feel almost sick right now. But yeah, I'm all right, so don't worry about it. But if I sound like shit or whatever, that's my bad. It just is what it is. I think you'd probably rather me still be here, even if I sound terrible. But all right, so yeah, we're going to do a standard rundown. We'll dive into a little bit of Bitcoin Yap, go over plans from top to bottom. We will, you know, try to keep our conversations relevant to Bitcoin at the time. We'll work our way down the time frames, then we'll move over into alts, and we'll probably finish it up with some sort of Q&A slash, degenerate rambling. But yeah, hopefully everyone's doing well. Things have been pretty interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and get locked in here though and start the yap. I'm gonna read through chat really quickly before we get going. Only 2 cups? That's not manly enough to have you. What do you have 4 cups? Pretty sure beyond 2 cups is like pretty bad for you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. What up? Only shows up to my stream because WoW servers are down. Crazy. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of Bitcoin Yap. Before I do that though, I'm gonna do share this. I get asked about this every week, multiple times per week, and we basically never indulge anybody, but this is the first time we're gonna do it. So this is the first time we've got an actual Paragon discount to offer everybody. If you use the code stream_hype with all caps, it's 20% off of everything. If you do it on the yearly sub, then it's a total of 40% off. So the deals are phenomenal on that stuff. This is something that I get asked about all the time. We don't really do discounts very rarely, or very commonly, excuse me. It's like a once a year thing max for us. So if you were considering joining, this is definitely the time that you want to take advantage of this opportunity right now. Especially if you're looking to do a longer duration sub, you can save a lot of money this way. So anyways, code stream_hype. I think you need to do caps, by the way. When I tested it this morning to make sure it worked, I did it with caps. So definitely try to make sure you do that. I'll keep this on the screen for a minute in case anybody needs to see it, and then I'll delete it off. Okay. Nelly, if it doesn't apply, I asked Charlie to set it up. I actually didn't specify that, Nelly, so that's a great question. I don't know if it applies to existing subs, but I'll tell you what, if it doesn't, I will make a separate code today for current subs. There's only 1 year for crypto payments only. We only do 6 months for cards, guys. That's why there's that confusion. I don't want to make this all about the shill though. I wanted to get that out of the way at the beginning because it's something I get asked about literally nonstop. I know people always say that, but like tune into my stream or Doc's or Charlie's, and it's like 7 times a stream get asked about that. So I wanted to cover that off, and I'm feeling pretty good about things recently. So I figured it was time to set it up for and give people a little bit of a discount. Claim it later. Oh, it expires in a month. Well, Charlie, I'll talk to you about it after the stream. Don't worry about it. How do you pay with crypto? It's in the same section. Literally, instead of clicking card, you just click the tab to the left or the right, whichever one the opposing tab is, and it'll be crypto. Okay, let me lock in and start to yap about Bitcoin a little bit. So first things that we want to say is macro wise, still super bullish across the board, right? Very, very optimistic about things. I won't lie to you guys that this local move that just happened from 105 to where we're at now, I definitely didn't expect this to happen yesterday. So we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive on medium time frame on some of that stuff, but overall my higher time frame plane hasn't really changed at all. I want to be a trend respecter and continue to respect this this massive momentum that we have, guys. We're seeing the true institutionalization of Bitcoin, and that kind of suit bid that we've been yapping about for weeks really coming in with that more or less arms race to accumulate, as we talked about. So I'm very, very optimistic about us trading higher. The only talking point, right, is are we going to do one of these kind of summertime chop things? I thought there was more drawings to that. Are we going to summertime chop it up into Q2 and into Q3 and then trade up in Q4, or are we about to lift off now? I know everybody wants me to come in here and LARP with certainty, right? But the truth is that I basically am looking at this more or less like a coin flip right now. I am, positioned for us to trade up if that's the case. And, if we start to lose momentum, then maybe we go back to defense or whatnot. But, the truth is that anybody that on your timeline that's going, saying it's for sure going to be a bearish, summertime, where the people are saying joyful June, it's for sure going to go up, right? All these people, it's fun to do that on social media for, engagement and whatnot. But the real approach to trading is to say that, I don't really know which direction it's going to go, whether it's going to go sideways or up or just straight up. I'm going to be positioned for it to go up, and then I'm going to make changes accordingly and focus on playing defense. Really quickly, before I continue with this outlook, I got 210 of you in here and 28 likes. Press that like button for me, please. Really trying to push the page on the algo. Like Doc always says, it's time to take YouTube, Twitter away from the YouTube people and replace it with CT people, so we can actually give them legitimate advice and not just scam. Okay, continuing with the thoughts, right? So that's really, point number one. We're betting on up, right? We're very, very confident in upwards continuation. Point number two is it going to chop, or is it going to go straight up, right? I don't really know. I could sit here and LARP and say I do or I don't, right? But the beauty of this, guys, is like what I think is going to happen and what my positioning are, they're not necessarily the same thing, right? So the idea is that I didn't know how this move was going to play out, but I was max long the whole way through. It's kind of similar vibe right now. So I'm not necessarily saying max long. I'm only spot long, to be clear. I have no leverage on or anything right now. So again, it's the main macro talking points. Very, very confident we're going to go up. It's just, are we going to chop people up a little bit beforehand, or are we going to go up higher? You know what? If you put a gun to my head, right, and you say, Magus, you have to pick one of the two right now, I'm going to say summertime chop between the two. That one seems the most reasonable to me. It makes the most sense. But what makes sense and what you think are going to happen, that's the market doesn't give two shits, right? So I think either way, you want to be really, really open-minded about either resolution. I guess the third and final resolution is us chopping up and then bleeding downwards. I really, really attribute such a low chance to that. Sure, anything's possible, and you keep that in the back of your mind that maybe the macro cycle top is in and we trade down from here. So you're not flat-footed if that's the case, but very, very unlikely in my opinion. So if there's any questions about the macro stuff, please by all means hit me with it. Otherwise, I will probably be moving on here soonish. A few different things I can say while you guys kind of populate some of the questions. What are the key kind of focus points right now from a level standpoint? So I'm sure the yearly value high has shifted up a little bit since I drew this, but essentially call it like 105 to 103, 100K to 103 roughly. This is the end all be all of support, right? If we lose this, then bulls are in significant trouble. As long as we hold over that, the structure is super bullish, right? Even if you were to like chop downward and kind of have lower highs, right, and lower lows, you could do that kind of meme triangle into the support and still be bullish, right? So TLDR, we just want to remain over this kind of support zone. We'll look at that in more detail in the VWAPs here in a second. Local resistance is basically where we're at right now. Call it 109, 110, whatever the fuck you want to call it, more or less all the same. Next major upside target 120, final upside target 150. Beyond that, maybe we keep going, but keep it level to level, right? If for some reason 100K gets lost, then you're basically targeting down into like the mid 80s. And that would be a very substantial drop on Bitcoin, right? You're talking 10 to 15% on Bitcoin, and that means your alts are going to get shit on too. So to be clear, really, really important that we continue to see this stuff hold up. Very much overlapping with the composite low, right? That's the range that we're working with right now. I can kind of show you that on this other chart. It'll be more clear. This is the range. We're currently building price action above the value area high, which is basically call it 108, and 102.4 as the range low bottom. That's pretty much it for macro yap, right? I have other things that I'm keeping an eye on, but as far as what I talk about for the public side of things, that's pretty much where we're at. If there's any macro questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move on to VWAPs next, probably. How many days is discount available? Yeah, that's probably the other thing I should have said. Charlie told me to say that, and I forgot. It's not going to be forever, guys, because we don't do these kind of things. I would say I'll keep it up for at least a week, but no guarantee that it's going to be longer than that. A couple of weeks maximum. We don't really do discounts, right? We're just trying to, trying to reward some of the people that are loyal to us. Some of you guys just show up to the stream every week, right? And I feel like you guys deserve it, basically. deposit into plasma. I didn't do any of the plasma stuff, guys. If I'm being super honest about that, like I'm really bullish on stables. You guys have heard me yap about that way before anybody on CT said anything. I don't have any investments in it though. What I would say is if I got an opportunity to do like a tether kind of, you know, investment in a private way, I would have done it. But I'm not super interested in trying to do these kind of, like, you know, sprints to the public buys like that. So I passed up on it. But very optimistic and bullish on all that shit. You think it's worth to add spot Bitcoin late this cycle? Look, guys, my stance on Bitcoin is that if you think about it from a trading standpoint, it's hard to buy Bitcoin at 108K, right? But most of you guys should look at Bitcoin the same way that we've learned over the years to look at something like the S&P, right? Some of these indexes like the S&P or the NASDAQ, you know, are basically just destined to go up until the status quo in the world changes. They're destined to go up. So you don't sit there and say, I'm only going to buy the S&P because it has a risk-defined trade for me, right? You just buy it and know, you know, over the next year it's going to go up. You can have the same kind of, excuse me. There's that allergies coming through. 1 second. You guys can have the same exact kind of mindset about Bitcoin where you just, you know, I know accumulating a whole Bitcoin or multiple Bitcoin is pretty hard for people nowadays, but you have that mindset where you just slowly buy up Bitcoin when you have excess money and stuff like that, and be confident that even if you buy it and it goes down 30% next month, that long term it's going to keep appreciating. So, I mean, even straight up for poor people, right? Even, you know, you're in 4-figure hell, right? I still think that you're looking for how can you accumulate Bitcoin in your life. First stream, what up? It was hard to buy Nvidia at $50. Don't even remind me of Nvidia, guys. I bought Nvidia. So when I first started getting into investing and stuff, I bought a bunch of Nvidia. For me, it was a bunch of Nvidia for me at the time. I think it was like $3,000 or $4,000 worth. This would have been in like 2016, maybe late 2015. I don't know. And yeah, basically, if you do the math, if I had just held that trade, I sold it in like 2019 or something. There was like a stock split that Nvidia did, and I remember selling before the stock split. So for the nerds that know, that's when I did that. And yeah, I mean, I would have made a buttload of money basically on Nvidia if I had just held it and done nothing. So there you go. It's the same kind of argument, right? I mean, forest through the trees type of situation. You sell your Bitcoin for a gain and then come back a couple years later and you should have just done nothing. It's the same thing. All right, my friends. So we caught up with chat. Let's let's yap about some more stuff, guys. Keep typing away in the chat if you feel like it, though. Overall, though, macro thoughts, super optimistic, right? If it dips, right, you know, basically one of my more bearish scenarios, I think I maybe deleted this one. I guess I deleted it. One of my more bearish scenarios is us basically coming back to this, right? Making a macro higher low and then trading up from there. That's basically as bearish as I see this getting, is us trading down to squeeze people out and trade up again. Who knows how low we'll go? I would basically say that the general rule of thumb when you're trying to gauge where we're going to trade to or how far, or, you know, whenever in crypto you're thinking, okay, we're going up, how high are we going to go up? Or we're going down, how far down are we going to go? I always think about it like this. It's almost always going to go further or shorter than you expect it. And one of the key ways that I normally explain that is from a time frame standpoint. If you are trading medium or low time frame, the target is going to always get like front run for you, right? If you think, okay, I'm trading medium time frame right now and I think it can go to 120K, that means the top is going to be like 114. But if I'm trading macro, like the highest time frame that exists and 120 is my level, it's probably going to go beyond it. So the cliche thing I say is for short-term trades, it always comes up, you know, shorter than your expectation, and then the opposite for higher time frame. Just a little less in time. So given that, right, it would mean that it would either bottom higher than I expect or lower than I expect, right? Not really in that kind of sweet zone. Okay, we'll probably move on to VWAPs and medium time frame here in a second. Let me check chat. Don't worry, I'll cover hype. I don't have a massive bag of hype anymore because I have sold a lot of it off, but I do own hype, and it's one of the, don't worry. All my bags won't be forgotten to be spoken about. I can assure you. Okay, let's, I mean, yeah, so this is my Nostradamus, if this plays out, I'll probably be really annoying on CT and try to pretend like I'm CT's main character. If this doesn't play out, which it probably won't, then we'll just forget about it. That's how the classic influencer approach. We'll do a quick scan on VWAPs. So, yearly looks really good. Honestly, pretty crazy. When we were over here, I said this is kind of the perfect scenario for us to deviate this value and reaccept, right? I did not expect it to just be as strong as it did, but I kind of expected us to start to fail around here, if I'm being honest, originally. But it's crazy if you have been watching all my outlooks, how we talked about this being the bottom, right, for it to reaccept back into the value, and it's just sometimes things play out perfectly. From there, we got really extended from value. That was something I was talking about, right? That was one of the main reasons why I started playing defense. We pulled back and have reconverged with value and now bounced really strongly from it. Honestly, as far as everything looks on this chart, looks pretty fucking insanely good. This chart would tell you that dips are for buying. As simple as that, right? You see a dip, you buy it. On the quarterly, pretty similar image. Quarterly looks really bullish, right? Quarterly didn't have that, bearish open the way that the yearly, or, bearish, building down, like, whatever. We're moving on. I don't care about the words. We retested quarterly value, which really was basically the same almost as yearly. Yearly was just a tiny bit lower. Quarterly looks really good. Per the quarterly, it would be very clear that dips are for buying on this chart. And it's going to more or less be the same across the board, right? It's pretty safe to assume that if your quarterly is bullish, then your monthlies are pretty likely to be bullish, right? And then you're less likely to have consistent weeklies, but you're going to have somewhat similar of a trend with the weeklies, right? So I would be focused on the current weekly. I suggested longing off this, and we'll see if we get that response or not. That was one of my intraday setups. That was either along the singles day or along the weekly. Let us probably move over to a little bit of medium time frame. Let me do chat, and then we'll do medium. It's not the right chart. We can stick with it anyways. Saw BTC ever make a new high? I mean, obviously it's possible. Would I bet on it given the current circumstance? No. It's very, very unlikely that alts their first or second cycle, they outperform Bitcoin, right? But then later cycles or later, buy waves, they generally don't outperform on the long term. All right, a little bit of medium time frame talk. So my core, thesis right now is, kind of expecting to build a range right here. I drew this last night, so it doesn't look perfect. Either we're looking for it to build a range, which will set us up for an opportunity to buy, or it dips and it sets us an opportunity for us to buy. Either way, I think medium time frame, you're dip buying for continuation plays right now. So the kind of play that you just got was the weekly VWAP retest. Just for actually, we're gonna skip over that. I leak enough anyways. It's fucking on your screen anyways. You can put the context clues together of how you would play either scenario. As it stands, right, pretty obvious we're getting the breakout, kind of the breakdown retest. We want to see this be strong and reclaim, I'll just go ahead and move over to this chart really quickly so you can see it. From now, now that we have broken down from this, we really want to see it kind of reaccept this. We can look at that on lower time frame here in a second. Actually, just do it really quickly. All right, this is the current value that we're building. I know it's really small because it just started, but value area low 109.1 basically. So it's fighting for the value area low reclaim as we speak. Apart from that though, right? So that's pretty much it. Core thoughts were this. For slightly higher medium time frame, because I kind of skipped over this. My original plan was that I'm not going to cover every little detail why. I originally was thinking that this was momentum loss. This V back up didn't really concern me because when you trade down inefficiently, it makes sense to go back up, or vice versa, right? But this drive up that we just had yesterday, sure, it was really led by Binance Perps, which is one of the main reasons why I didn't just like go full port, gig along with leverage and stuff. But this was a pretty strong impulse, right? So I think that the impulse that happened yesterday pretty much is going to be invalidating my momentum loss structure argument. Sure, this could happen, but I'm weighting a much lower probability to this playing out right now, which means, honestly, you know, it's a fucking stone's throw away from another all-time high kiss. So that's right around the corner right now, pretty much is what I would gather. So if there's any medium time frame questions, let me know. If this starts to lose, you know, momentum, and, you know, maybe this impulse doesn't result in anything, maybe it trades sideways, maybe it breaks down from there, trades sideways again, trades back up, maybe I hedge into something like that, right? If I start to see this playing out again, then I will go back to defense. To be honest, though, yeah, I mean, yesterday's move really was hard to trade, right? Because per what I saw before I went to bed, right, everything would have told me we would have traded down, right? But the skews in the book changed overnight. And Binance Perps played their fucking manipulation games that they've been doing for a very long time now. All right. What percentage dips are we eyeing to buy for Bitcoin versus alts? So I'm not super interested in buying up alts right now, to be honest. Main focus is definitely about managing and writing all the Bitcoin stuff. You know... To answer your question, right? Like the dip to buy just came, right? That, you know, this dip into weekly VWAP was what you were looking for. So in terms of percentages, right, you're getting, you know, you're looking to buy like, you know, 1 to 3% pullbacks on Bitcoin is what you're looking to buy. But don't just sit there and say, oh, it only pulled back 0.5%, I can't buy it, right? Maybe the pullback is 0.5% that day. It's dynamic. Okay. Is volume really that low, boss man? I don't know what you mean. You sound pretty mad, Jeff. It's gonna be okay though. Take a breath. What do you guys say we do alts? Because it didn't seem like there was any medium time frame questions. I would much prefer to look at my list first, but maybe one or two of you guys will throw in 50 tickers and maybe 2 of them will actually be good. Let us start with ETH. I'm going to start with ETH because I know a bunch of you guys are interested in this coin. I've gotten asked about this a few times over the past kind of couple of streams, and I'm not gonna lie, my response was I'm not interested, right? You guys remember me saying that. I'm still not super interested in ETH because I don't think that we're about to enter into some sort of, you know, kind of ETH regime by any means. But I'll chart it out for you guys. So here's the opening thoughts. When we look at it on the dollar pair, locally it looks really good. High time frame wise, I still, you know, finally we've flipped the yearly rolling. That's the first optimistic sign. Overall, though, I mean, this thing has just been so weak compared to Bitcoin. It just really is not that appealing to me in that regard. On lower time frame or medium-ish time frame, I see the argument that it has clear relative strength. So if you're already long on this thing and you're trying to catch a trade on it, I think it's totally reasonable. For me, you know, the trade has already come and gone, so I'm just gonna miss it. Totally happy to do so. The one thing is that I would say don't get carried away with thinking that we're about to go into some sort of Giga ETH season. I think that as soon as Bitcoin starts to heat back up again, whether that's right now or in a couple of weeks or months, ETH is going to definitely take a backseat to Bitcoin again. Everything will take a backseat to Bitcoin again whenever that comes. So that's more or less it, right? My thoughts are, if you're trading this, I could see this trading up into the, you know, lower 3,000s, no problem. Bitcoin's definitely paved the way for ETH to do that. But yeah, I mean, my main talking point, you know, normally with ETH is this, just the relative underperformance for such a sustained period of time. I don't really care about short-lived outperformance on a coin, right? If I'm going to structure my port around ETH, And let me go ahead and follow this up, and make the point that for those of you guys that don't know, I came into the space because of ETH. I used to build my port entirely around ETH in 2017 and even in 2021. The backing of my port was ETH. So I'm not afraid to buy ETH or whatever, right? It's just I've learned to lean more into Bitcoin because that's worked a lot better for me. So until I see really just a clear higher time frame trend structure shift on the Bitcoin pair, which would look something like maybe it trading up higher from here, pulling back, making a higher low, and then starting to make actual trend structure up, until it does something pseudo, relatable to that, I'm not going to be restructuring my port or anything like that. What I would say is, maybe if I was looking to catch a, trade on Bitcoin later today or tomorrow, maybe I would long ETH instead. Maybe that's where ETH's use case would maybe come in for me. For the sake of a bunch of the viewers, because I noticed a lot of you guys are long on this thing, I hope this thing goes up a whole lot for you guys. But I've been through, I've watched too many of these things, and I clowned ETH every time, and maybe the Pavlovian argument, I've been trained to clown ETH, and maybe this is where ETH goes up a lot. We shall see. That's TLDR on that. I'm going to ignore chat for a few minutes because I don't want to stare at your tickers too much. I'm going to run through mine really quickly. Next one is going to be Solana. I don't really think that Solana is, really the best play anymore. In 2023 and in 2024, Solana was, the thing that carried my portfolio in a big way. So we'll always be appreciative to this coin for having done that. But, I've more or less abandoned ETH or Solana in some regards. Yeah, I always will have some Solana. But my exposure nowadays, is really low compared to how many I used to have. Here's what I'll say. My TLDR shill on Solana, or idea, would be that Solana is the play that you make if you want to have crypto exposure, but you don't want to buy risky shit like memes, but you're also, maybe you want a little bit more risk than Bitcoin. The problem is that honestly, Bitcoin's probably going to end up doing better than Solana for the foreseeable future. So, you kind of need to have a little bit of Solana in your port. It has a use case, but it's hard for me to make any significant arguments for this thing. I don't think it looks terrible on medium time frame, right? Local structuring looks goodish on it, especially if it could reclaim the monthly rolling. Then, I think this thing would look pretty good, but I'm going to more or less just chill on this for the time being. Hype. I love Hype. I'm also a little bit sad about the idea that, I don't have a ton of exposure to it anymore. I sold a lot of this on the way up. But, I mean, you can't look at this thing and say it doesn't look good, right? This thing's a monster. We had periods where Bitcoin is kind of trading weak, and then this thing is just going up, right? So, I shouldn't have been aggressive taking profit on this probably in hindsight. My logic for why I was confident in the bag was when you look at this thing on lower time frame, from the bottom, every pullback was really shallow, right? When you look at this, other alts would pull back and they would pull back like this, right? And then this thing would pull back like that. So that should have been my argument for not taking profit. But I was up a lot in a short period of time, so I got greedy with it. But anyways, maybe there's a period in time where I buy back some Hype. We'll do Fartcoin next because we know everybody loves Fartcoin. This thing's been really strong recently. I do own a bag. I own a bag of all these. They're not excessively large or anything, but overall, Fartcoin looks really good to me. I think, just like on Hype, Fartcoin and Hype are definitely the two market winners right now. You buy dips on these things. It's pretty simple. If I wanted to play memes, I honestly would probably play Bonk over Doge right now, even though I own a little bit of both. I think Bonk is locally a little bit stronger than Doge, for sure, between the two. Pepe was looking good recently, too. I definitely don't dislike Pepe. I definitely do not dislike Pendle. I think Pendle almost can fall into the same category as Hype and Fartcoin. It does not get enough attention on CT, but when you look at this coin, let's go to like monthly. I mean, when you look at this thing, it's a good coin, right? It's continuing to put in, strong structure, making higher highs. This coin clearly has a bid, and everybody, this is a good combination of it's got a good chart and it's got a good narrative. So Pendle probably belongs as something that you maybe are looking to make plays on. That's more or less it for me. Very happy that I sold my Sui off. And that's more or less it, right? There's a few other coins here that can look good. What did I just look at? Was that Maker? God damn. Maker's strong. Okay. We'll pause here for a second, run through chat, and then we'll see where we go from there. We'll look at some of your tickers. Magus Force, it's Yard ETH. Would you consider another round to buy Bitcoin if it were to draw back to the 80s? It's hard for me to say. Yes, it's possible, but it's all contextual, right? Because, you know, if we trade down, I mean, the 80s is far away, guys. The only way we're really going back to the 80s and still going higher is if we kind of break down naturally on our own and then get forced lower by panic and news and fear to drive us lower once more. Otherwise, I really feel like the next, like, kind of, if we were to even break down, we might even just trade up from now. If we were to do another kind of macro high or low at some point, I feel like it should be higher. But only time will tell, guys. But any sort of, like, if you're newer, you maybe haven't heard this too much, but I don't believe in, like, the levels and stuff that much. It's not like I'm never ever gonna say, if we come back to this level, I'm going to buy it no matter what, right? It's always going to be a, what does it look like? What's the context of the situation, right? You know, what's the order book skew looking like? You know, all the kind of boring generic things that we always talk about. I say them so much to where I can't even remember the fucking things off the top of my head anymore. It's all a blur. All right, let me run through the rest. Do you think ETH will pop? Do the hated rally like XRP did? It could. I don't think the XRP really did a hated rally, guys. XRP popped up. You know, once Bitcoin lost its momentum is when a lot of the altcoins popped. So I just, a hated rally. That's just a beta rally more than anything. ETH could do a hated rally. If it starts to do that, I will at some point I will pivot and join onto their team. But I don't see it. It's very possible though, because you know anything is possible, right? You want me to look at Grass? I can look at Grass, but this is definitely a dock kind of coin. I don't think I've ever taken a single trade on this coin once. Although I clearly have charted it at some point. Okay. I don't like this coin. This reminds me way too much of like Dimension and a lot of other coins, right? So in order for me to be bullish on a coin like this, I need to, like, I know this thing has like a fundamental argument, right? It needs to be out. I need a reason outside of the chart, because the chart alone, sure, the chart could materialize like this where it gets up and, you know, it ends up being good coin, right? It could do this, or this could do the Dimension, you know, or any number of million coins where it slow rolls to death, right? I mean, we'll look at Dimension really quickly just to make my point. I mean, the funny thing is we zoomed out and you probably thought I was talking about this, and I wasn't even talking about this. I was talking about way higher. I was talking about this. So it gives me that same kind of vibe. You don't want your coin to end up like this. You want it to be doing the opposite, right? Bullish. Bearish. Looking at Tron. We can look at Tron. Tron is pretty much always bullish. It's a good scam coin. What do we got? I mean, yeah, Tron looks fucking insane, right? Every time I ever come to Tron, I normally say, you know, I'm probably not going to trade this thing, but you could literally just blindly DCA buy Tron over the years and just chill and you will make money. You need zero skill, zero awareness, zero anything other than the ability to click buy on this thing. Eventually, you get scammed when this thing does, you know, a crazy move or whatever, but overall, this thing just gets relentlessly T-WAP'd up over and over again. It's pretty crazy on some level. I mean, you guys haven't been around that long, but when I was really just a giga noob, I had a monster trade on this thing where I bought Tron. This would be way back over here where we don't even have history in 2017. But Tron, believe it or not, went all the way up to the same type of price number back then. I remember buying Tron at I think 6 cents, and a day later was selling it at 27 cents. And this was in 2017. So it's almost sad that it's just now getting back to its highs. Kind of shows kind of relative outperformance You'd think that this would be a monster coin, but actually Bitcoin did way better than Tron over this period, right? Unless you're Justin Sun and you made Tron, it's not really as good of an investment as Bitcoin, which is pretty wild if you think about it. All right, I already did Fartcoin. We can do Aave. I'll always love Aave. This is one of the things that really set me up to like commit to being a full-time trader. I had already quit my job, but this is what made it me honestly feel like I was gonna make it. Was catching this move in early 2021. I think this coin looks pretty fucking good, honestly, on higher time frame. Dips are for buying, you know. I would say you're basically looking to buy right here-ish, you know. Either you get a front run play where it kind of wicks down above it, or maybe it wicks down through it, one of the two, but this is your general bid zone, right? When you see the weekly overlapping with this kind of sideways price action, you know, there's even, I bet you there's even a single print in here. So basically like 290, 295-ish, maybe as low as 285 is a turbo bid on this thing though. That's pretty aggressive because it's on the weekly, so be mindful. But honestly, that's the most obvious thing I would say. Because if you look at any of the other higher time frame charts and you make a plan on this one, for example, it's going to tell you you want to bid a lot lower, right? It's going to tell you want to bid 270. But the reality is if this thing's going to keep going, it's not going to come back to 270, right? If the reality is if this thing's going to keep going, it's going to do this and then go up, right? And you're trying to buy this. Study that lesson, boys. Because that applies to every fucking coin in front of you. All right, what else do we got? ENA. I think I'm going to clown this coin, brother, because last time I looked at it, it looked like ass. Whew. Okay, the one thing you got going for you is that, like, locally, it looks okay on, like, the weekly. The weekly looks great. But outside of that, I mean, when we look at this thing on the yearly, absolute piss. So you're praying that this thing is about to spark giga momentum and trade up. Per the chart alone, I don't have anything to say other than I wouldn't bet on this. If you like the ENA protocol or something, then maybe there's an argument to bet on it. But just the chart alone, I'm sticking away from this one, steering clear of it, if you will. Weekly Gassian channel, bro. What is that? Is that a Fartcoin meme? The gas channel. Charlie, there you go. That's your new fucking viral treat. Put one of our fucking bands on it and call it the gas channel for Fartcoin. You don't deserve me. Chart syrup. I don't like looking at the smaller coins. I guess 500 mil is not that bad. I don't know anything about this coin. I've heard of it a few different times. You know, it's clearly, you know, new listing. You know, we need a little bit more price history than that to say much. Okay. I mean, is there anywhere where I can get more history? Damn. This thing looks good. I know this protocol actually makes money, which is probably the best thing about it, if we're being honest. But when I look at this thing, this looks like a monster scam, boys. Be really careful, though, because here's the reason why I know about this, is because people have shilled me on it, right? That's why I know about this coin. I don't mean you. I mean the people that, you know, people that know things type of people. So this thing will probably keep going up, but just be mindful that you don't want to let the cartel dump on you, right? Make sure you actually take profit if you're trading this type of shit. But, I mean, I can't deny the chart looks good, and I know it's got some scam fundamentals, right? They make money and whatnot. Third World seems to be using USDT on Tron as opposed to their local currency. Oh, really? I didn't think about the Tron element of it. So I definitely know that a lot of, you know, second and third world countries, they use stablecoins a lot. I know this firsthand. I did not think about the idea of them using Tron, though. The reason why they're using Tron over ETH is it's so much cheaper, brother, right? ETH gets expensive sometimes. What I would say is it just makes, if you're going to pick a secondary chain, obviously Solana. You know, I would not want to keep money on, I've had the opportunity to use the, you know, Tron chain before, and I've passed that up. I would not feel safe. You know, I would only want to keep money on ETH and some on Solana, right, for stables. ETH is clearly the chain to keep your money on for safety. Bonk Doge, Pepe, I already did those, brother. They're clearly not as big of winners as something like Hype or Fartcoin, but they look okay. Do you watch CVD when you trade? Spot exhaustion. No, I don't use CVD, guys. I use delta histograms. I don't like CVDs. Delta histograms to see the initiation, exhaustion, absorption. Virtuals. I know Doc's been killing on this thing. I've never taken a trade on this coin. It looks okay. I mean, honestly, no, it looks pretty good. It just looks pretty good, right? It's got an AI narrative to it. The chart looks pretty good. I've never traded this coin. I'm almost certainly not going to trade it. But the chart looks okay. You guys might ask yourself, why does Magus often say it looks good, but I'm not going to trade it anyways, right? The logic is that I'm trying to not overwhelm myself, right? The man who chases many rabbits catches none of them, right? It's about concentrating my focus and just caring about a few things, right? In crypto, it's very easy to chase everything in front of you, and you will not, you know, unless you're fucking Rain Man, you're not going to win like that, right? You need to slow down and make more concentrated plays, you know, with your focus. Watch Footprint in CVD. It doesn't work well for me. No, it's not going to work well for you guys. CVD is pretty terrible for that kind of stuff nowadays. And Bitcoin flows are a lot more complicated and nuanced than they used to be. So simple approaches to reading flow will not work anymore, right? You're not going to get discernible edge from that stuff. All the old school DeFi is strong. I kind of love to hear that though. Comp, Aave. I mean, bro, you're calling Eigen is not old school DeFi, vid. Eigen is newer generation, right? What you have like Compound, Aave, Maker, Sushi, Uni, right? Those that's the OG DeFi, right? Wi-Fi. What do I think about Frog or Flog? I'm not gonna pull that chart up because I don't really do on chain. You know, I know a bunch of people that caught that thing early and traded it up. Some of them took profit. A lot of them round tripped. You know, I'm not, yeah, I think that the art was great for that thing, but it has no correlation to the actual price of the token. I would probably steer clear of some of that stuff. Do you expect any kind of alt season? Look, guys, the sentiment around alts is really, really bad, right? We're getting to that point where for the first time ever, somebody that has never had, you know, people that have never made money with alts or Bitcoin or anything now want to buy Bitcoin, right? People that cared about alts for 6 years now want to buy Bitcoin. That to me, I've had way too many of those instances, which to me tells me that, you know, Bitcoin dominance will probably have a pullback at some point here soon. I think that the trend of Bitcoin outperforming and dominating everything is not going to change it. You know, that won't change anytime soon, so don't get your hopes up. But look, guys, the whole alt season meme thing is really dumb for the most part because people get caught up on waiting for alt season when you just need to learn how to read Bitcoin and learn how to filter for strong altcoins. When you know, generally speaking, what Bitcoin's going to do, and then you know how to sort and identify what coins are actually good, now every time Bitcoin goes up, it's alt season for you. It requires skill and work, but that's how you create alt season nowadays, not just waiting for fucking, you know, I threw 17 darts at the board and waiting for one of them to go up a lot, right? It's not a legitimate way to trade these markets anymore. Is your VWAP time-based, boss man? Yes. Everything you see on your screen currently is going to be time-based. I use non-time-based as well, like Anchored. You factor in the S&P in your all-time high. It's something to consider, guys, but one of the lessons you'll learn from me if you listen over the years is I try not to really get into the whole macro geopolitical thing, right? There's been countless lessons. I can show this one really just because this one just happened. You know, Bitcoin was trading down and then things got really bad over here with the S&P, right? And it was just absolute the end of the world, right? If you sat there and worried and thought about macro and made your plans about macro this, macro that, you did not trade this very well, probably. But from up here, our plan was to buy here. And yeah, it was scary, and I had to think about things a lot, and I had to manage my positions a lot when I was opening them, but I went completely against macro and bought here, right? And it's just like, that's the lesson, guys. Sure, out of the 223 of you in 223 of you in here, maybe one or two of you is going to read and take in macro information and make an informed decision of it. But honestly, the vast majority of us, myself included, we're not really going to make better decisions. So here's the simple way to approach this. And this isn't just for macro, it's for anything. I teach this in the Paragon, right? The idea is whenever you're trying to think about something, before you get into it or try to figure it out, always ask yourself, is this going to help me make money? A lot of the time, the answer to the things that we see on Twitter that we talk about, the answer is no, that it's actually not going to help you make money. And then the next follow-up is then why do you care, right? So generally speaking, we don't want to overcomplicate things. Sure, somebody's going to be smart and do the macro shit, right? For me, it actually just makes me trade worse. So I would generally prefer to ignore it outside of the really, really big events where you can't ignore them. All right, we're running through. Love to know more about market makers. I mean, look, I don't want to do a whole market maker spread. Everybody, you know, your average retail perception of market makers is just dead wrong. Market makers don't move price, really. I mean, so look, you have real market makers and then you have crypto scam market makers. Real market makers say this is the price and I'm willing to sell here and I'm willing to buy here. And they make markets work so that when price comes down here, somebody to buy when you panic sell, right? Or vice versa. That's what a real market maker does. They pretty much just make money off of the back and forths. And you have the crypto kind of scam market makers where, you know, there's kind of under the table deals occurring and a little bit more, you know, the manipulation side of things take place. In crypto, we have both of these kind of market makers now. We have the OG scam guys and we have the old boomer suit people market making now too. Over time, it's going to basically be completely dominated by the suits, right? And the scammers won't have edges or they won't get deals anymore. They'll be gone. So the market maker is not on Bitcoin. The market maker is not scamming you. He's not running your stop. The market maker doesn't give a fuck about you, right? You are a piece of plankton and he is a whale and he is eating up, you know, he's just eating your stops up. You're just a number to him. He doesn't give a fuck, right? On the crypto side of things, maybe, you know, with alts and less liquid stuff, maybe that kind of scam stuff is more legitimate, right? I don't want to yap about that too much because it's kind of boring, to be honest. You get a low and medium time frame on Fartcoin. You know, normally I would say no, but because we're asking about Fartcoin and I have a bag, I'm down. If I wanted to play Fartcoin right now and it's been really locally strong, you are either doing a very shallow pullback like what we just got, where you're retesting the weekly bands. Maybe you target the weekly VWAP. What would the weekly VWAP look like on this? I could definitely see something like that. So right now, per this chart says where you buy or here. And then over here on the monthly, it says you buy at like 120. So what I would say is that you're basically looking to buy 120 to 115 next. If you're lucky, right? If this thing's going to keep going up, this is what a God tier entry location would look like. Probably on the higher end, right? Expect it to front run. All right. Motherfuckers be yapping. I'm trying to run through chat. That's what we got. Real question is, do you remember me as Pee Pee Poo Poo? Of course, brother. Anybody that comes in here with the name Pee Poo or something, I'm going to remember, you know? I don't want to look at a ton of other alts, guys, so I'm going to start skipping over some of these, right? We'll look at Chainlink. I always like to look at Chainlink every now and then. I don't really do it on my own. For those of you guys that don't know, Chainlink, this is the coin that set me up to go full-time. Without Chainlink, I probably would not... I don't know what would have happened. My transition to being full-time would have been a lot slower for sure if it wasn't for this coin. I don't remember drawing any of these fucking lines on this shit. Chainlink looks pretty good. Not gonna lie though, like, you know, the likelihood I'm going to make any plays on Chainlink is pretty fucking low, guys. I don't think it looks terrible. If you have Chainlink, you know, you're probably all right. But I'm probably done playing with Chainlink anytime soon, unless there's some sort of Chainlink meta. Thoughts on Sui and Jupiter? Sui's trash. I played Sui in May, and I sold it for like almost break even. It's way below my original entry. I don't like Sui right now, to be honest. Jupiter. I haven't looked at Jupiter in a minute, so we can look at it. Piss. Absolute trash piss. Garbage. Ondo. I think Ondo's going to look pretty bad as well. Ondo doesn't look terrible, but I mean, clearly, you know, if I'm making an RWA play, it's obviously Pendle. Thoughts and prayers. Oh, damn, I'm just now catching up to some of the questions. I'm really far behind. OF question, would you recommend Footprint, etc.? Probably not. I mean, Footprints have their use cases. I don't really use them too much these days. To each their own, you know. I think the best use case for most people with Footprints is going to be learning. A footprint, the way it displays the information, it's great for learning. Whiff, yeah, we haven't looked at Whiff in a long time. My best trade of last year on perps was with Whiff. So I will always like Whiff, even if Whiff goes to Whiff goes 0 or whatever. I'll still always like this coin a little bit. Yeah, it looks like piss though, right? I mean, I guess a lot of the memes don't look that great, but it's just not a vibe right now. Not a vibe, right? Time to boomer reminisce. Little old Manning. How insane these fucking moves were, where you could just buy the dip and then be up 230% 4 days later. Pretty fucking insane. It's not even drawn properly. Alright, what else we got? For VWAPs, do you use standard deviations as overbought and oversold areas? Kind of. I mean, it's not any dissimilar to how you would use the value area, you know, on a profile, right? So just because you're above a value area high doesn't mean that it's overbought. It means it's relatively expensive to the current value, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's overbought. You need a lot more confluence than just the bands. Poor brother's got my back, confirmed. On your point about making a plan to buy ADK, then buying it, I thought levels were memes. You make general guideline plans, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to blindly buy or sell any of these levels, guys. You make general plans and see what happens when you get there. Because really, once you really understand flow, you realize that when price is moving around, you say, this is a level, this is a level, this is a level. It really is just a fucking order book, right? An order book is just all these different fucking price levels divided up by tick size. Every fucking price point is a level. These are all levels. So really, sure, some of these levels are going to be more visible on the chart, but really, every single fucking price point is a level of sort where there's going to be interaction between the maker and then the taker that hits into them. And maybe you bottom here because of that relationship, or maybe you drive to the next price point. Literally every fucking tick on the chart is a price level. But very, very few will digest that one. Would you consider any shorts here? If I was to short, it would be to reduce risk, not to directionally short. I would definitely not be directionally shorting. Everyone wrote it off, but it was the best meme coin. I think you're probably talking about Whiff. Whiff was a pretty fucking sick meme coin. What would that have been, like Q1 of 2024? It was a good coin during that period, right? We can actually just go and confirm that, right? Yeah, Q1 2024. This was a really fun period to trade Whiff, right? Really enjoyed this. And I had one of my biggest perp trades of all time. Certainly was my biggest of 2024 on whiff. I did it at the very beginning of the year, and then the whole rest of the year I couldn't beat that trade, so that was kind of disappointing a little bit. What do you find the most interesting about trading these days? Wow. That's a hard one, man. I don't know. What do I say here? What do I find the most interesting about trading these days? Probably just the psychological side of things. Trading forced me to look really deeply inward and think about why I think the way I do and why I act the way I do, right? And then that kind of translates over into thinking about how other people are doing things, right? So it starts with like more self-reflection, and you start thinking about what other people doing in the book. And now I hope it doesn't sound like arrogant or anything, but I have like a kind of a social platform now too. So that adds a new layer into the social, like into the psychology that I get to observe between myself and other people. So I think that that's probably the most interesting thing to me. A lot of the trading stuff, I've been trading for over 10 years, so a lot of the little technical things or whatnot, they get boring over time. But the people stuff, the people, what makes us do what we do, why we think what we think, that stuff never really gets old because it's never stale, right? Where it's kind of always progressing, especially as I like get a better understanding of these things. So, good question, Colin. You made me think. Was the current dip on Bitcoin a good buy? Yeah, I do think it was. Only time will tell, because it kind of looks weak. And when I was looking at the order book, it was not looking that great. So, from a trading standpoint, this is probably a good trading opportunity. Is it going to be the swing low? Probably not. OG DeFi coins have a small narrative here. I don't know if it's even maybe it's a medium narrative, but I agree. Why is Sui trash the tech? Sui's trash because the chart looks bad. It was just a lot weaker than a lot of the other coins. Honestly, Sui might end up going up again and it'll be fine. But look, guys, when I went risk on, and from an altcoin perspective at least, when I bought up a bunch of alts in early May, I split my layer ones between Hype and Sui, right? And Hype just, like, my Hype play just absolutely shit on my Sui play. So that's the main reason why I don't like Sui now, is because I split the bet between the two, and I should have just only bet on Hype, right? So now we will forever not like this coin. Did you already give your insights into today's market? Can you give analysis on how you come up with it and learn many things from you? I did not do any lower time frame stuff today. It doesn't appear that, here's the two trade setups for today. I don't normally share this kind of stuff, but I share these in Paragon a lot, or I'm at least starting to more now. Either a singles play, which I originally took this play, and we did get a bounce from it. As you can see, we did get a bounce right here, but it was really weak. So once we started to come back to my entry, I just closed for basically a loss because of, some fees stuff, and then I resent it once we bounced from the weekly. I would like to see us trade higher and start to get above the daily VWAP. By the time I close the stream out, if we're not, starting to really test the daily, maybe I'll just close it out. But yeah, that was basically the thesis, right? We had so much momentum yesterday, and this is the value that we're building out right now. So it basically means that any dips below it, I'm trying to buy. Sometimes I'm cautious about how much I want to share with these things. And it's not because I'm worried necessarily about people decaying my edge or anything like that, because I know that's where people's thoughts go. But I just kind of get tired of seeing other people stealing my shit on social media. That's actually my main concern with it. I'm not really that worried about too many people trading this stuff effectively. Oh, SPX 6900 was the best meme? Maybe so. Do you have a psychological tip in topic of fear to buy? Your plans are done? Well, look, man. When your plan is to buy and it comes to your opportunity to buy and you're too scared and you don't buy, you can only go through that period, that kind of thing of the pain so many times where you're either going to quit trading or you're going to learn how to fucking buy. So, yeah, guys, like almost all my best buys, I'm fucking scared, right? And when I zoom out, a year later and look at it, it's like, wow, that was the most obvious fucking buy in my life. But in the moment, they're almost always fucking scary. So, and there isn't a magical answer for me to tell you here. It really is just like, if you make the plan and it was your plan to buy in that area and everything's looking good, right? You don't just blindly buy it, but if you say, okay, I want to buy in this area and it looks like an actual good reason to buy now, you gotta just man up and do it, Do you think trading higher time frame improves performance? I would probably say the opposite. Where trading lower time frame will improve other versions of performance because the reps and experience that you're going to gain. Problem with higher time frame trades is the frequency. For higher time frame trades, I maybe have 20 a year on a good year, so you don't really get a lot of trade setups for higher time frame is the issue. How do you check the order book? Simple indicators, right? I guess message Charlie for the payment questions, looking at the 12-month option, but didn't see where to enter the discount. When you click buy, it says discount codes, and then you type in the code. I'm here exclusively to steal charts. I always knew that was the case. The discount code definitely works, guys, though, because before I turned the stream on, I put it in my account and made sure it worked. Any new shiny tokens you like? Not really, guys. If I'm being honest, I'm a little bit lazy and complacent with that stuff. A lot of times the new shiny tokens get brought to me. I don't have to do anything. So when I'm scared to go to church, I respect that. You're going to make it. But no, we're not really in the season of new and shiny, right? I really like Hypecoin and Fart. I'm underexposed to both of them because I don't have big bags, but those are the only coins that I really like. And Pendle. I think Pendle looks good too. How do I learn a indicator as a beginner? That's an interesting question. It's such a simple question that it's actually a good one. When you want to learn an indicator, let's say you want to learn how to use volume profile. You turn everything else on your chart off. Just look at the volume profile. First off, before you start using it, you got to figure out what the fuck is this information telling you? Like, what is this thing telling me? From that, what am I supposed to use this for? Volume profile is telling me where people are buying and selling at. So what is the use case? Levels. It gives me a clear level and says, this is pretty much a low volume node. So if we were to trade all the way down to like right here, you would expect this to be a monster long opportunity, right? So that's what you do. Simplify it, figure out what the fuck it's telling you, then figure out what the use cases are, and figure out how to start actually using it. Try not to overcomplicate anything. Do you still actively refine your edge to this day, or is it implementing your system as is? I still seek out new edges with flows because a lot of the flow approaches that I used back in the day, they don't work anymore, right? Because frankly, too many people are doing them. So I'm always changing like my logic of what, the order flow logic is always the same. It's always a simple relationship between maker and taker and gaining some sort of insight from that. But maybe some of the tools that I'm using or how I'm rating it or interpreting it is slightly different over time. Because I'm slowly, even though my rate of progress is slow nowadays, I am still getting better at rating flow over time. So I would say I'm still refining it. I would say a lot of my edge these days that is like coming in is coming from experience. Don't you feel overwhelmed with all the indicators? No, guys. So I know that a lot of people struggle with this stuff, but for me, none of this shit's complicated, right? Yeah, I mean, there's all this stuff on the chart, but it's really just VWAP levels, volume profile, and basic volume, right? To see where a lot of buying and where a lot of selling is coming in. This screen is nowhere near as complicated as people think it is. So if these things are overwhelming for you, but you're interested in it, you just start piece by piece. Start with volume profile. Then start with VWAP, then start with simple volume, then maybe look at open interest, then maybe look at premiums, right? You go one piece at a time. But there's no fucking way to speedrun. Yeah, there's definitely no way to speedrun experience, guys. I actually do. That's actually not true. You can kind of speedrun experience, and how do you do it? You listen to someone like me, to be honest, right? I hate to sound arrogant about it, but that's the truth. That's why I do this stuff. I'm trying to help you guys learn faster. I had to learn mostly everything on my own, right? And that meant that the learning curve was fucking slow, right? I had to figure out this worked and this doesn't work all on my own for the most part. So with these streams and the Twitter and all the things I do nowadays, I'm trying to help you guys learn faster. So you guys can maybe get through some of the rough periods a little bit more easily, right? The rough periods for traders suck. So if I can help you get through it 10% faster, then that's W for me from an educator standpoint. So no, all on your own, you cannot speed run experience, but you can speed run experience by listening to people that sound like they know what they're fucking talking about. All right, my friends. Where to learn volume profile like me? Oh, obviously me, right? I have videos on this stuff, right? You can check my Twitter. You can check my YouTube. And obviously, closing shill arguments. Oh, did I delete it? Or maybe it was on this chart. There we go. I have spent almost 4 years putting together the most comprehensive education for my style of trading that I truly think exists. Because I don't just go over the concepts, right? Anybody can explain to you what open interest is and how to use it, right? But I explain like the levels of depth that I'm bringing is different. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the stream here, guys. So again, we never do Paragon discounts. This is a time where you want to capitalize on that. Use the code stream_hype. I think you need to do all caps. 20% off of everything, and then it's total of 40% off the yearly when you put in that additional 20% code. I'm going to move on with my day, though. I've got a lot of stuff to attend to. Busy times, but good luck out there. Cheers.